Hi everyone, Lisa and Dan here from Fireside Strategic. In the Fireside Chat series, we're celebrating leaders that combine humanity, mission, and strategy to build great organizations. Right now, we are very excited to chat with Gino Wickman, lifelong entrepreneur, founder of EOS, and author of many wonderful business books, including Traction and most recently, Entrepreneurial Leap. Gino, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thrilled to be here, Lisa and Dan.
Gino, so Entrepreneurial Leap is your newest invention. Can you give us a little teeny bit of an introduction to what it is, what it's about?
Yeah, I would love to. So it is a passion project. So after 30 years of obsessing about entrepreneurs and what makes businesses great and helping entrepreneurs, I'm now going to the front end of the entrepreneurial journey to help entrepreneurs in the making. Okay. And so this is anyone out there that thinks they're an entrepreneur, wants to take the leap, and it's designed to help them first confirm whether or not they have what it takes, then show them a glimpse of the life, and then show them a path to greatly increase their odds of success if they choose to take the entrepreneurial leap. So it's a mission to help 1 million entrepreneurs in the making over the next 10 years.
Really appreciate the idea of giving people a glimpse into what life is actually like as an entrepreneur, because of course there's a big difference often between what it's really like and how it's advertised.
Exactly.
Curious if you can flesh out some of what how that difference tends to show up.
Yeah, I really appreciate you going there first, because this book and message is a cautionary tale, because being an entrepreneur is not all it's cracked up to be. And I'm fearful that there's so much hype around it and everyone wants to be an entrepreneur now. It's like in the 70s and 80s when everyone wanted to be a rock star. Now everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And it's a cautionary tale, because if you don't have what it takes to become an entrepreneur, you should not do it. And this book will break some hearts, because there's some people out there that really want to do this, but probably shouldn't. And so I'm trying to save the people that shouldn't do it 10 years of hell. So so it's coming at it really in your face and just saying, this is tough stuff. And I think the last point I would say to your question is, my discovery in the last 3 decades is that a true entrepreneur, these thousands of entrepreneurs I've worked with, they all have 6 essential traits. And I believe that they're born with them. So I hope I'm wrong, because that means there'll be a lot more entrepreneurs. I don't think I am, but there are 6 essential traits. And I'll just quickly give them to you at a high level. It's visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven, risk taker, and responsible. And if those words describe you, because you've been exhibiting these traits your whole life, then odds are pretty good that you're probably an entrepreneur in the making.
That is so refreshing. You know, I think that you're right, that there's so much excitement, so much hype, so many people jumping in. So if I were somebody that was considering going the entrepreneurial journey, where should I begin?
Well, that feels like a loaded question, because I would begin by reading this book, but here's the good news. I've got some free things you can start with. I offer a free assessment called the Entrepreneur in the Making Assessment. You can fill it out in 10 minutes on the website, e-leap.com. And you fill it out. If you score 90 or higher, odds are pretty good that you're probably an entrepreneur in the making. And so that's a great way to put your toe in the water, answer some questions about yourself, really start to get to know yourself and see if these 6 essential traits are right for you. I also offer a free chapter of the book. It's like the first 30 pages of the book. You can download that from the website as well. Read those first 30 pages. Again, see if this sounds like you, feels like you. And if it does, then please jump in with both feet and go on this journey to decide if this is right for you. Because once we confirm that you are, it's the next 2 parts of the book, glimpse and path, which is where the real magic happens, because that's where I'm showing you all of the possibilities, which lights up a true entrepreneur in the making, and then showing you a path to greatly increase your odds of success and help you eliminate half the mistakes you're about to make. You still have to make the other half, but I'll help you eliminate half of them.
Yeah, and certainly those mistakes can be so costly in terms of time, energy, money. We think about, even for true entrepreneurs, they are going to make mistakes, right? There's no question. And those mistakes can be extremely costly in many ways. It was an interesting experience. Before I read the book, I did one of those tests, and I got an 89%. So I was kind of right on the margin, which was interesting.
That's close enough. Close enough.
There you go. And it inspired a question in me, which is, I wonder, of those 6 essential traits, which ones are the ones most commonly lacking amongst folks you see that are thinking, oh yeah, I should be an entrepreneur, but maybe they shouldn't?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I wish I could say, the question I get asked, and I thought this is where you're going, but you're not, is, which trait can you not have and still be a, great entrepreneur? And the answer is you have to have all 6. So now going to your question, when I see people that don't have them, which is the one they don't commonly have, it's all over the place, because you can have someone with all of the other traits and not the visionary trait, and they're just not going to become a great entrepreneur because they're not that idea machine that is so vital for an entrepreneur to succeed. And then I'll give you another example. Let's go to responsible, because responsible is one that's always so surprising to people. How on earth does that make the cut of 6? But the reality of it is, if you're not the kind of person that defaults to taking responsibility, defaults to looking in the mirror, defaults to looking at yourself every time something goes wrong, you are going to fail, because the other half of the world blames everyone else when everything goes wrong. And so missing that trait, you're just never going to succeed, because you're always going to blame your employees. They're going to leave you because they're going to get tired of all the blame. You're always going to be looking at everyone else for why things aren't working for you. And so it's just not going to work. So there isn't this 1, 2, or 3 that are the most common. It's all kind of interchangeable. And what's important is, I believe 4% of the population exhibits these traits, are true entrepreneurs, which means 96% of the population do not. My point is that, it's not like entrepreneurship is the one and only career choice. So it's just that this isn't the one for you. There's a thousand other opportunities for you. And you don't have to have these 6 essential traits for every career. Just the opposite. You don't have to have any of them for certain careers. So this is just about you deciding if this is the path. And if it's not, you get to check that box and say, okay, this isn't the path for me. And it's time to go look for what the right path is for you.
It strikes me, hearing you describe the responsibility trait, that it's an essential trait for people to have to rule themselves out. If you don't have it, you couldn't rule yourself out of the equation, right? But going a little bit deeper here on essential traits, it's interesting. You talk about the fact that these are 6 essential traits that we are born with. We either have them or we don't. But there probably is, you would agree, a spectrum of kind of development here, right? Where I would look at my sort of past as an entrepreneur. And when I first started about 7 or 8 years ago, I was certainly much less developed in all of these, but especially in the responsibility trait. So it was more common for me to blame others if something went wrong, to not take responsibility. And I hope, having my business partner in the room, I can be held honest to this. I think I'm pretty good nowadays at the responsibility. Right. So there's a spectrum here. Can you speak a little bit more to this? We all have them innately, but we can still improve in them. There's a certain minimum standard that we innately get. Is that the idea?
Well, here's what I would say. So you're prompting 3 thoughts, and I need to give you all 3 thoughts to hopefully make this make sense. So I wouldn't view it as a spectrum. Okay. I'm just going to, we might disagree on this. But the way I see it is, it's more of a discovery process, because Dan, I believe you've been responsible your whole life, and responsible doesn't mean that you don't show up late for a meeting, or, when you were 13 and you got caught, stealing a cookie, that you didn't blame somebody else. So I believe you've been responsible.
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
So I believe you're born with them. They've always been in you. They just get clear. They're discovered. You clarify them better. And so I'm still on this first point, but I'm reminded of a podcast I did with a guy that grew up with an engineer father and a teacher mother. So not a very entrepreneurial household at all. And he was an entrepreneur in the making. And he really didn't think he gained his entrepreneurial traits until like 22, when he left college, where he and I had this great conversation. We dug deeper, and he realized that they've been with him his whole life. He did not have the opportunity to let them flourish in a household that really looked down on wild and crazy entrepreneurs. So again, for him, it was always there, but he never had the permission. So again, I'm using this word clarify, discover. We could come up with 100 other words for this, but you flourish. Maybe you're calling that a spectrum. I'm calling that just kind of a realization, a comfort in being yourself. And so just, imagine two scenarios. Somebody who's told their whole life, stop acting out, stop coming up with ideas, stop challenging the status quo, stop taking risks. And someone who, again, assume both people have these traits. The other person in a household that says, take risks, take chances, have ideas. The second person's going to flourish a lot faster because they're not being repressed. So anyway, I feel like it's more of a discovery process. And actually, I'll stop there because I think that hopefully indirectly answers your question.
That's such a beautiful answer. And as somebody who came from a pretty risk-averse household and had to find my way into entrepreneurship, I'm like, yep, I get it. Would love to move towards the vision portion of the book. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, what can people expect? What is this vision once they get on board? And as we mentioned earlier, there's a beautiful side and kind of an ugly side too to it, but curious to hear the inspiring vision.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to pull those three parts together. Pull those three parts together. And so if you can kind of see the linear and psychological approach to what I'm doing, let's pretend that we've now confirmed that you have the 6 essential traits. Again, it's a discovery process.
Yeah.
Let's validate, yes, I am this thing. I want to go. The second part of the book is Glimpse. And what I do in Glimpse is anyone with these 6 essential traits, once they read Glimpse, it lights them up because I do 3 things in Glimpse. I'm giving them countless stories of entrepreneurs in the making who were right where they were and what they built. Number 2, I show them a day in the life, both heaven and hell, the good and the bad. And I show them the 8 critical mistakes you must avoid and can avoid so that you live the dream, because sadly, most entrepreneurs are living the nightmare. And then the third is I introduce them to a tool I created called My Biz Match, which helps them understand all of the possibilities, all the types of business to start. I created a tool on the website. You fill it out, click a bunch of buttons, and it tells you the perfect business that you're drawn to. Not every entrepreneur is built to build every business. So you got to figure out the one that is uniquely for you. And so that's the glimpse piece. So when you talk about vision, it's helping that person clearly see all those possibilities. Now they're ready to run. We go to path. And in path, I basically give guideposts to show the way, again, as I keep saying, to greatly increase their odds of success and eliminate half the mistakes. And so very quickly, what I'm doing there is I'm first of all addressing college or not, depending on what age they are, how to discover your passion, how to find a mentor, the power of 10-year thinking, the 8 disciplines that greatly increase your odds of success, and the 9 stages of building your company. And so when you say vision, that's the whole vision and the whole approach, and boom, that entrepreneur is off to the races. And then there's one last little point in this is in those 3 parts of the book, there are 3 very powerful tools, 2 of which I already said. 1 is the entrepreneur making assessment. 2 is that My Biz Match. The 3rd is called My Vision Clarifier and Path, that now that they're clear, it enables them to pin down their vision very quickly. And if you go to the website and you click on the 1, 2, 3 roadmap, that's what those 3 tools are, the 1, 2, 3 roadmap, all free. And an hour, an entrepreneur in the making can have a roadmap for taking their leap and ultimately start a better startup.
That's awesome. One thing that really strikes me is that you're demystifying entrepreneurship. Other career paths, let's say if you want to be a doctor, there are so many clear books and steps and education for how to get there. While for entrepreneurship, we're all kind of left to our own devices, usually.
Yeah.
I think something that really struck me is that you said most entrepreneurs are living the nightmare. And I think one of the reasons that happens is because there is no guide, that we're all kind of flailing around until we figure it out.
Exactly right. And I always say, if somebody's trying to tell you there is this perfect system for starting a startup and building a company, they're selling you something, because there just isn't. I mean, there's no perfect plan and way to start and grow a business. That's why the 6 essential traits are so vital, because you're making it up every step of the way, and you're reinventing and you're evolving and you're changing and you're bobbing and you're weaving. And so I always jokingly like to say, if there is a system, the best I can tell is it's 4 steps. Step 1, you have an idea. Step 2, you take your leap. Step 3, you get your ass kicked for 10 years. And then step 4, you emerge a successful entrepreneur, hopefully, because you got a 50-50 chance of succeeding at best. So that's the best system I can give you. Other than that, it is just this wild and crazy ride, which is why you have to have these 6 essential traits, because it's borderline crazy doing what we do.
Mm-hmm. Probably a bit even more than borderline crazy. Outright crazy is I think how I describe it.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Exactly. Many different sort of elements of richness to unpack here, but I want to go next to this My Biz Match tool. I thought that was a really interesting experience. And I think you're bang on that someone that's suited for e-commerce isn't suited for running a consulting business or vice versa. Curious, because we've got 4% of the population that has these 6 essential traits. Curious if you can flesh out a little bit more why it is that someone might be really suited to the consulting business and someone else really suited to the product business.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you're going here, and just bear with me as I go a little bit deep into this, because I'm quite proud of this tool, but not for my ego, but for the effect it has on people. And so for anyone out there listening, just try this on, because what My Biz Match does, and you can, again, go fill this out on the website, free, e-leap.com. What it does is it helps you figure out the perfect business that you're built for, that you're drawn to. And I take you through everything. When we talk about type of business, it starts with industry. And so I show you hundreds of industries, and you obviously click on the ones that appeal to you and you're drawn to. From there, when we get into type, we then go into 3 types of businesses once you choose an industry. The first is product or service. And so the way that you ask that, I'm going to put a little spin on how you ask that, because how you figure out whether you're a product entrepreneur or a service entrepreneur is for you to discover, because you may take your leap with a product and realize you're a service entrepreneur. The only way you're going to know is to try it. But at least what I'm going to do for you is create incredible awareness so that you know the options and you can make a course correction if you made the wrong decision. So I am a service entrepreneur. I like selling the invisible. I have utter disdain for product businesses because inventory gives me the heebie-jeebies. When I look at $1 million in inventory on a shelf, it makes me go crazy. So anyway, that's just my style, but I've got tons of clients in product businesses. So again, are you a product entrepreneur, service entrepreneur? The next type of business is a B2B business or a B2C. Do you like selling to businesses or do you like selling to consumers? Very different sales processes, very different marketing. I'm a B2B guy. I love selling to CEOs. That's what I'm great at doing. And so I learned that about myself. I love having clients, handful of clients, not a ton of customers. And then within that, where we go is then, are you high price, low volume, high quality, or are you low price, high volume, commodity based? Both work. But again, as we go through each one of these things, you rarely can be both in business. And so you start to see what you're drawn to. And then the last piece of the puzzle is size. And this is my impassioned plea to the entrepreneurial world, because every entrepreneur is not cut out to build $1 billion company. We're all being sold this bill of goods about these tech unicorn $1 billion startups. Well, that's not for everyone. Amen and hallelujah for those that are, but there's nothing wrong with building a $5 million heating and cooling company with 50 people in your own backyard. So again, you've got to figure out what you're drawn to. Some entrepreneurs need to build a 10-person company, and some need to build a 10,000-person company, and everything else in between. And the power of when I share this and why I'm so passionate about it is it's so freeing for so many entrepreneurs in the making, because they realize, wow, I don't have to build a $100 million company. I don't have to. So again, the beauty is you get to freely go build whatever the heck you want to build in the world and make no apologies, and don't do what everyone else is doing. Do your thing and do it better than anyone else on the planet, and you'll be one happy person.
Right there with you. Happiness is super important. And sometimes we think about why people are actually starting businesses, why some people enter the entrepreneurial arena. Sometimes it's to fill a hole. Sometimes it's that, you know what, there's this emotional challenge or this almost subconscious part of themselves that they need to address, as opposed to approaching from this more intentional, affirmative, this is what I'm inspired to create in the world. This is a honest reflection of who I am at my best. Two very different places you can come from when starting a company, right?
For sure. You know, and I talk about in that third part of the book, path, and the chapter I mentioned about discovering your passion. So I give 7 exercises for discovering your passion. And my point in that is every person, every entrepreneur, every business has a passion, a purpose, a cause, a reason for being. And I find that whatever that entrepreneur's passion is, it does typically stem from a wound, a pain, an experience, a problem they had in life that they're trying to solve. And so I'm so passionate about entrepreneurs because I helped my entrepreneur father save his company. I'm so passionate about helping entrepreneurs in the making right now because at 18, I was a mislabeled, derelict, insecure entrepreneur in the making who had no idea what he was. And as my friends are all going off to college, I'm saying there's no way on earth I'm going to college. I'm getting the hell out of academia and I'm going to work. And so that was unheard of. Like there's something wrong with me. So that's where my passions stem from, are those pains that I experienced from the past. So that's the way I would answer your question.
I love that your approach both lays things out, gives a set of tools, some formulas to use, but what it comes down to is it's a very personal experience. And I think you're almost going a little bit against the grain of what we see in media about entrepreneurship, about there's one way to do this. This is the sexy way to do it. We're going to grow for growth's sake. And you're taking a step back and helping people be introspective and really recognize their version, their story, their characteristics. And I love that your tools really give people an experience of finding themselves in entrepreneurship.
Hear, hear. And I don't know what else I could say to that because you've said it perfectly. That's the whole design from word 1 to the final word in the book. That's the whole purpose, is for you to decide, again, once you decide you're an entrepreneur in the making, the life for you, the business for you, what you want to build for you. You're going to affect a lot of people. Hopefully you're doing it for all the right reasons, and most are. But ultimately, yes, it's all about you building an extension of yourself that makes a huge impact on the world.
That's lovely. You know, I'm curious how somebody is supposed to use this book. So I read it fairly quickly. I've been in entrepreneurship for a while, but there's so much to unpack. There's so much personal discovery. There's so many mistakes that you have to make. I'm curious how you envision people reading this and implementing it.
Well, if I'm going to give you the worst case scenario, okay? In the worst case scenario, what I want is for someone to read it and know what's about to happen. In other words, if I can just create awareness, I believe I've served them well, and I feel like I've literally helped them eliminate half the mistakes. So it's not as if they have to read it, study it, devour it, spend hours and hours and days and weeks study, although I would love it if they did. So don't misunderstand me. Worst case scenario, if they read it cover to cover and had that awareness, they are better prepared to succeed as an entrepreneur. Again, just through awareness.
And what's the best case scenario?
You know, and one more thing I want to say, and then I'll come back to that question. You know, so there's pre-law, there's pre-med. You know, I really consider this to be pre-entrepreneurship because, again, I'm showing them the life. I don't think there's anything else out there like it. I'm showing them the life before they start the life. And I think that's the best thing we can do for them, is them being able to see that life. And believe me, the life is a lot more hard than it is easy. So the life is like 80% hard, 20%, you know, so you get your ass kicked a lot. And I'm wanting them to see how hard it really is so they go into this wide open. So now I'll come back to your question. What's the best case scenario? So the best case scenario is that someone reads it, someone studies it, someone does the work that I prescribe in every single chapter. They fill out the assessment. They fill out my Biz Match, decide the perfect business. They fill out my vision clarifier. That's that 1, 2, 3 roadmap. And then they literally do everything I tell them to do in this book. That's the ideal.
It's a whole course. You've developed an entire field of study. You wanted to get out of academia, and here you are developing a whole new field of study.
How ironic, huh?
I love it.
So what's interesting, so many elements to go deeper into through this conversation. So what's interesting is, as entrepreneurs, we're always looking for gaps. We're looking for sort of unfilled opportunities. And there are so many elements of the entrepreneurial infrastructure, whether in tech, it's the VCs, whether it's incubators or accelerators. There isn't that much incentive, at least from a purely financial perspective, it seems to me, to solve the problem you're solving versus scale the company and the entrepreneur that already have that product market fit, that have some of the basics in place. There's more financial incentive to spend a lot of time solving that problem. How can we help them scale? Little less incentive probably to spend time helping someone make that really intentional, aware decision about whether to become an entrepreneur in the first place. Does that resonate?
I'm not following the question, so help maybe re-ask.
Less of a question, I suppose, and more of a reflection. And it's that I think in the entrepreneurial world, and I'll cite VCs as an example, there's all kinds of incentives to help the entrepreneur who already knows what business they want to run, who already has some product market fit. There's incentive to help that entrepreneur scale because the VC can make a lot of money if they bet on the right horse. Maybe there's a little less incentive to help the person that isn't sure whether they should be an entrepreneur in the first place, or to help the person that is earlier stage and figuring out, well, if they are an entrepreneur and they have the essential traits, what kind of business should they start? It seems to me there might be a little less of a financial incentive to help that person. I don't know. Does that resonate?
100%. And so you are correct. And here's the reality. If I had not built what I built for the last 30 years, I would not have the financial wherewithal to do what I'm doing now, because you are right. There's very little revenue in this passion project. So fortunately, what I built affords me the ability, the time, the effort, the energy, the passion to focus on this project. So I definitely had to do it in this order. And so half my life is still doing EOS stuff. I still own the books. I still own 12.5% of the company. I still have clients. I still do speaking. That 50% is very lucrative for me. This 50% is a lot less lucrative, but I'm having a freaking blast because I'm helping so many people. So it is truly a passion project.
Well, yay for having a blast and making an impact, regardless of whether the money is there here. And so curious, if we think bigger picture, how can you've written the book. We want to get the book out there to as many people as possible. But how can we use your thinking here on Entrepreneurial Leap to have the biggest impact and help as many entrepreneurs in the making as possible?
Well, the number one way is the kind of secret ingredient behind this model. Okay. And so what I'm doing is I'm joining forces with what I call collaborators. And a collaborator is any person out there that has a passion for helping entrepreneurs in the making. And so these are, everything from nonprofits, for-profits, professors, teachers, mentors. And what I do is I join forces with them and I give them my content for free. No money changes hands, no contracts. I have 90 collaborators now, and these people are out there teaching the content. All I ask in return is that you give credit where credit is due. And so we've joined forces and they're out there doing great work. And so for anyone out there interested in becoming a collaborator for Entrepreneurial Leap, you just click on the Become a Collaborator button on the website, e-leap.com. And that's the best way to help. But worst case, for those of you out there listening, many of you probably don't want to be an entrepreneur, aren't interested, but you have an entrepreneur in the making in your life. You might have a son or a daughter or a brother or a sister or a neighbor or a friend or somebody that's exhibiting these crazy characteristics of an entrepreneur. My God, hand them the book. Send them a link to the link on the website to take the assessment. Send them the free chapter. So that's a small way that you can help change somebody's life forever. So where you run into somebody with ADD and they're wild and crazy, odds are pretty good you've got an entrepreneur in the making in front of you. Help them out.
That's really inspiring. I love it. So now that you have this book, you have all these collaborators, just curious, what does the future hold? What are you hoping that this whole movement really that you've become with Entrepreneurial Leap will become?
Well, it's right back to that goal, and that's to impact 1 million entrepreneurs in the making in the next 10 years. So that's the overriding goal. That's the impact we're going to make. I'm confident we're going to hit that. And so we're just marching toward that every single day.
Beautiful. So look, Gino, as we come to the end of our time together, a way that we love to wrap up these interviews is, look, we've talked about Entrepreneurial Leap and startups in general and humanity and psychology, but very curious to hear, when you're not working on your books and doing EOS, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, I'm pretty simple from that standpoint in terms of I'm not hella skiing or, jumping off mountains or anything like that. So it's, for me, I just love spending time with my wife, spending time with family, spending time with friends. I travel a bit. I love just simply going for a walk, love simply going to the movies. So just, really simple stuff to just kind of decompress. But most of all, I definitely love traveling. I do a bit of travel.
Well, here's hoping we can all do a little bit of travel soon enough. Again, Gino, really, really great message. Enjoyed the book. Really appreciate the mission. We're very, very happy to amplify that mission, get it out into the world, and appreciate what you're doing in the world, and can't wait to see the impact you make.
Appreciate that. Had a blast. Thanks, both of you.